I promise you this is so far from anything that you've ever been to.
And now.
We're trying to duplicate what we do on the listing side on the buyer side. So on the listing side, we set an appointment. We fill out a seller info sheet. It's in green. It's in the file around the office. We're doing the same thing on the buyer side. So buyer info sheet in yellow is filled out every time an appointment is set by our inside salesperson or by our buyer agents. And we try to make a big deal about it. And so we're trying to do the tracking and the emphasis and the focus on a level of productivity around setting appointments on the buyer side. When you have that appointment set, there's a couple things that you'll want to do. You want to have buyer packets. And you can see this little video here kind of gives you an example of what is included in our buyer packet. And you just want to have packets ready so when you meet with buyers, you have something to go through. So that's the buyer packet. So I'm not going to go through that because there's a PDF here and then there's a video here that you can watch. When you meet with a buyer, it may not be the ideal setting to do a buyer presentation. So Danny created this, and I think Stacy had used this first, buyer packet. So you want buyer packets. I gave you the resources there. The buyer booklet. So this one is our presentation just turned into a booklet. So you can go through this with buyers. Danny should create this booklet when he creates your presentation. So if you go back in the buyer system, you want the buyer booklet, which is just the presentation. So the buyer presentation is here. And it's the Lars Group buyer presentation. And our law requires that we go through agency, and here's a short presentation. That's what this presentation is. So anyway, Dave, that's what you want. You want the buyer presentation, the buyer booklet, which is just a booklet version of the presentation. And then there's another document, which I'm going to have Stacy post. Stacy, can you post your buyer that roadmap document? That's the only other thing that I would suggest you get from Danny on the buyer side. So those are the three things on the buy side. Buyer presentation, the buyer presentation as a booklet, and then the buyer roadmap presentation thing that Stacy's going to put in the drive and then link it into the Facebook group. All right. And then on the listing side, so that just gives you the ability to have those conversations with buyers in a showing appointment, at an open house. The booklet Stacy's going to post is something I would recommend that you put together in addition to a more formal buyer presentation when you actually have a buyer consult going. All right. So on the listing side, it doesn't really matter to me what you send out here, but you have to decide to send something out as a pre-list packet. And there's a cover letter, which you have the Word version of it. The maximum payoff guide, which I've been using forever. Danny had made these, I think, back since 2010, and I never really stopped using it. The 151-step VIP seller program, the maximum value pricing guide, and there's this interview that I don't think Danny's allowed to do this 7 principles exclusive interview anymore because it's an NAEA deal. But the whole point is that you want to be able to send out 1 or 2 things in a pre-list packet, whatever they are. So the maximum payoff guide is here. This pricing guide is pretty good. I think it's a little bit more detailed than you may want to send out to somebody, but it's a good conversation piece for your listing agents or for you to have about all objections about pricing are covered here. Danny had that. He basically turned a presentation. You can see these individual slides here. This is like an old school presentation. It had to be 100 years old about pricing and how to get the highest price for your home. And I gave him dialogue to build around these individual slides. So it's a pretty cool document. The 151-step system, this is used by agents all across the country. This is not unique to me. Danny put this together for me. I think with the 151, potentially the max payoff guide and the pricing guide, those are probably enough. This email, this resume, this was Tim Heil gave this away when he did his leverage lead gen. I think they stopped doing that course, but this is modeled right after Tim Heil's. The point I'm trying to make, Dave, is that pick 2 or 3 of these. We for a period of time we included like a glossy of our endorsements. And so pick 2 or 3. It doesn't matter which 2 or 3, and get a cover letter. It's just important that you send something out ahead of the appointment.